Today is Saturday. It's July the 31st, 2021. I'm coming to you today with the devotional that is titled A Fool's Decree. Know God. Now, our scripture reading is Psalm chapter 14 and Psalm chapter 16. This devotional will focus on Psalm 14. And so, here we have the subtitle of Psalm 14, and I'm titling it The Fool's Decree, Depravity, and Dilemma. And I begin. Psalm 14 presents really what I would define as the universal definition of a fool. Psalm 14 and verse 1, the fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. They, that is fools, are corrupt. They have abominable works. There is none that doeth good. Now, there are three things that I would ask you to notice about the fool in Psalm chapter 14. The first is this, the fool's decree. And as we've already read Psalm 14 and verse 1, it is that he has said in his heart, there is no God. Now, no God is not merely something he said, but it is something that arises from within the fool's heart. He has rejected the Almighty, supreme God, not only in his attitudes and actions, but within his very heart, his mind, and his thoughts. You see, he is not a fool because he is mentally deficient or because he lacks academic accomplishments. He is a fool because in practice and principle, he has rejected God. Now, so the fool's decree is no God. Now, the second is the fool's depravity, or the depravity of a fool as it is displayed in his wicked ways. Now, fools tend to be morally corrupt. Rejecting God, they open their hearts to all manner of wickedness. They are, according to Psalm 14 and verse 1, purveyors of abominable works. In Paul's letter to believers in Rome, he described the abomination of those who reject God, and he writes, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. You see, there is a universal commonality of all who reject God. And in Psalm 14 and verse 1, we read that there is none that doeth good. You know, men may boast their good deeds, but those who reject God are fools. And so we have the decree of the fool, no God, the depravity of the fool, he's morally corrupt, abominable works, he does nothing that is good in the sight of God. And then that brings us to the fool's spiritual dilemma, verses 2 and 3 of Psalm 14. And that is, deny God at your peril. For your Creator is omniscient and he knows all. Now think of it. God ponders and God considers the hearts of all men. And he asks in verse 4, have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge? In other words, as they utterly, as man, are the fools of the world, utterly void of understanding and overwhelmingly stupid in their actions to continue in iniquity. And Psalm 14 is really, it is an indictment of fools. Now verses 4, 5, and 6, they devour God's people. They have no fear of God. They provoke God to wrath, and they shame all who look to the Lord as their refuge. Now the final verse of Psalm 14 is verse 7. And there we find this wonderful expression or messianic aspiration, a longing that the Lord would rule in Israel and restore the joy and prosperity that God alone could give. Psalm 14 and verse 7. Oh, that salvation of Israel were come out of Zion, Zion being the mountain of Jerusalem. And when the Lord bringeth back the captivity of his people, Jacob, the patriarch of Israel, shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad. Now don't despair. The Lord has promised he will return, believer. And when he does, he will right the wrongs, establish a kingdom of peace for a millennium before his final judgment. Don't forget this. God is on the throne. The world around us might be crazy because fools reign. But God knows who they are, and He loves His people. He cares for you. God bless you. Bye-bye.